Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us about figuring out how to quit corporate and transition to being a full-time entrepreneur, all while juggling multiple family crises, which can be very, very difficult. Today, you'll be meeting Danielle Bradley, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who's a career coach focused on helping mid-career professionals get hired for their most fulfilling role yet. Welcome to the show, Danielle. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Suzy. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, and we know each other from another world, so I love any opportunity I get to see you. So it really is so much fun to see you in my Zoom square. I know we're going to have a lot of fun today and have a really good conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. And, you know, I've seen you grow with this story over the years. We've known each other a while now, so I can't wait to hear some updates and reflections, really. And we're going to be talking about your business, what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way to some extent and are challenging for you in your life and probably also as a business owner. So let's get started with asking you how old you are, what your entrepreneurial journey was like, and what you do in the world. Take it away.
Well, I'm now 56 years old. I think that's right. I think we've stopped counting at one point, right? But my entrepreneurial journey, I will say, has been kind of a long-winded journey, as you know. And it took me a while to make the jump from corporate into going full-time in my business, and certainly very pleased that I was finally able to do that last year.
Wow. And what was it for you that made it clear that the timing was right?
I think maybe the pandemic might have had something to do with it.
The pandemic is coming into so many stories, and really, how could it not?
Yeah. I mean, it was my dream for many years, but something was preventing me from making that jump. It's like, call it the corporate handcuffs, whatever you want to say. Something was preventing me from fully trusting that I would be able to do this full time. And I think with the pandemic, it just really put everything in perspective. And it felt like this was the time. This was the time that I needed to make the jump. And I'm so glad that I finally did it.
You know, there's never a perfect time because there is no such thing as certainty.
That's right. Yeah.
I know I was super scared, but I hadn't been building a business. You had been doing a part-time business. So I can see how that was probably still a little scary, but much more appealing, I would imagine.
Yes. I had been building it part-time, but it was difficult because especially when you're trying to work with clients one-on-one as a coach, I did have a full-time job that required daytime hours, that required Monday to Friday kind of schedule. And so I could only really meet with clients in the evening, on the weekend. And that was taking up a lot of my personal time. I mean, I loved what I was doing, but it was certainly at times challenging to balance everything.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's not like if you have a full-time gig, you can't be coaching clients. That's for sure. So tell me exactly how you help clients.
Oh, I help clients get hired for their best role yet. And so I really work with mid-career professionals who are at manager, director, or VP levels. And I really help them understand the value, the tremendous value that they bring for employers. When we're of a certain age, we have all this experience, and a lot of them don't necessarily think about all the results that they can bring for employers. And I really help them uncover all of that and to be able to demonstrate that value when they are looking for a new role, whether they're in an unfulfilling role today, or maybe they've been laid off. There's a lot of layoffs, unfortunately, happening right now, especially in the US. And I help them really capture all of the results that they have been able to deliver for employers and translate that into documents, for example, with their resume, their LinkedIn profiles, and in interviews in a way that is really compelling for employers so that they can get hired and they can get rewarded and compensated at the right level for their level of experience.
Oh my gosh, that is so great. And you know, one thing that I find working with midlife women is we're not just older, we're older and wiser. I always say that. So we have a ton of experience and we have a lot of transferable skills. I think that so many of us just take for granted. Are you noticing that?
100%, a lot of transferable skills, but it's so important to sort of take inventory of what those are and how they may be able to serve that employer that is going to really value the experience that we bring and the level of maturity and being able to deliver quick results for them.
Oh, yeah. Can you give me an example? Of course, anonymous, but of something that maybe somebody really didn't see that it was a huge asset?
Yes, well, I do have a client who recently started working with me, and she actually had a career coaching background. She had a really diverse background. And the work that we had to do at the beginning was really inventorying all of the different things that she did, but really look at that list from a point of view of the target role that she wanted. Keeping that in mind with her target role, we were able to completely update her LinkedIn profile and using some of the keywords that are sought after for the role that she was targeting. She updated her LinkedIn profile. And then she told me last week that she is getting contacted almost every day by recruiters for job openings. So that made a complete turnaround with her job search, obviously, and helped her to realize just how much value she actually could bring.
Wow. That is so interesting that the key, so first of all, she made some changes in how to describe what she was doing. And then with your help was able to know exactly what to emphasize with keywords so that she could be found.
Of course. And of course, as you know, Suzy, the important part too, is this whole mindset piece, right? And having the confidence in our accomplishments and the ability to really put them on paper, that it's not bragging, right? That it's simply highlighting what we have brought to the table in a way that is going to be compelling for those employers. So that's something I find women seem to struggle with so much.
Especially women our age. It was certainly the way we were brought up that talking about yourself is bragging. Bragging is bad. It's so different. I don't think men get the same message when they're young boys. I've seen some research about that and about the types of jobs that men will apply to versus what women will apply to if they don't feel that confident about certain skill sets. And it does seem like it must go back to messaging and mindset. I'm not an expert in this area, but that is really, really interesting. And then there must be a whole huge learning curve about what you just said, explaining the importance of keywords. Like back in the day, we were writing resumes, going to wherever, getting them photocopied. We'd walk home with a box of 100 resumes, pray there wasn't a typo in there, and send them out with a statement on the cover letter, other duties. No, what was it? References furnished upon request.
Exactly. Or other duties assigned by management that we would put that in our resume, right?
Yeah.
And we'd apply to, I know my first really good corporate role, I applied to a newspaper ad. That's how I got that.
That's what I did too. Job. My last job, all my jobs actually, the JOBs were all newspaper ads.
Right. Things have changed so much since then, can I just say?
Well, would you say, I'm kind of taken aback by the keyword thing because I know a lot of the women I work with and interview talk about technology being a barrier to them. And it's not just understanding technology, it's understanding how to make apps work for you. For me, something happened with even the recording app that I use for my podcast. Sometimes I turn on the computer, I click on the app and my settings have changed. And I'm like, I don't really understand enough of the app to know how to fix the problem. I know how to set it, but if there's a problem, I don't really understand it like at a holistic level or something to really appreciate what I need to do next. So I end up Googling. So I've still been able to fix it every time, but there used to be quite a panic and now I'm not as panicked. But what you're just saying about the job search even has to do with like a techie thing, a digital literacy thing, like a learning curve thing of the keyword.
For sure. There's some simple things that make a huge difference. It's a lot to keep up with when you talk about technology. And certainly as we're getting older, but it is important to showcase that we are able to keep up with some technology, certainly to be appealing to those employers. So that is part of some of the things that I cover as well in my training. Even with minor details in your LinkedIn profile, you can make yourself look more tech savvy than if you didn't pay attention to those details.
I'm just having a floppy disk memory. Not so good. Okay. I remember the first piece of technology I owned was a calculator, and it was in grade 6. And I remember like it was a big deal to buy it. No, it wasn't grade 6. It was grade 11. It was like a science calculator. And I remember it was a big deal. It was 30 something dollars, and buying it was a big deal. And I held it in my hand and I went, wow, I've arrived.
Nice. The $30 calculator, how things have changed.
All right. So you transitioned full time in your business and you're helping people get different jobs that are better for them and really highlight where they want to go and what their true talents and experience is and everything. That's great. So everything sounds great. Enter midlife. So you mentioned that you had a couple of hiccups, probably more than a hiccup. And what I love to talk about is just really what is going on there. What is going on out there with women who are over 50, who are trying to run a business and deal with whatever's going on for them in midlife, because there's a huge collision sometimes. What happened with you?
Well, there was a lot going on in the personal life with my family. I have aging parents and they live in a different province, 5 hours away from where I live. And my mom especially went through some very significant health challenges. And I found myself, even before I moved full-time in my business, I really wanted to support them. And so I was supporting them, spending weeks at a time with helping them cope through some of the treatment that needed to be had for the health challenge. And I got burnt out a few times as a result. Once I transitioned full to my business, I was more in charge of my time, which was a great thing, but also it meant that I was more available to go spend a couple of weeks there and support them. And while still managing my now full-time business, really trying to earn the same type of money that I was making in corporate, it was a lot of pressure. I still had a lot to learn, even though I'd been running a business for a while. I still had a lot to learn about marketing and all the things, as you know, Suzy.
Oy, so many things.
I got COVID and I burnt out. I got bronchitis. I had all the weird things all happen within this 1 year period for my own health, right? Had to see a cardiologist, had to have biopsies, had to have MRI. And it just all happened all in the same year.
Wow, that's a lot. I mean, that's the thing. There's this extra pressure. First of all, women our age are often the go-to when there is a family health crisis. And also, I interviewed somebody recently who wrote a book about health equity and stuff that was going on for women at this age. And we make most of the decisions too for seniors and for young children. But at this point in our lives, it's more for seniors around health. And then there's our own health. And then you're still trying to run a business. I mean, it really can get very stressful and complicated. And that burnout thing, I remember when I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I did start to have a physical symptom. And thankfully, I'd been doing enough mindfulness work. I was connected enough that I noticed it, but I started to have pain in my eyes. And I don't know if it was just eye strain. Like, I'm not sure what it was, but I could tell that it was a problem and that things were out of whack, time-wise and focus-wise and self-care-wise and all those things. So at least I noticed it, but it does make me think how many little symptoms were going on that I didn't notice. And I think it was burnout. I do think that's what it was. Do you remember when you first noticed that the scale was tipping in the wrong direction?
Definitely. And I've been really fortunate with my family. We have so much support, and I have two brothers who have given a lot of support. But ultimately, because I was from out of province and I spent so much time there and I was trying to do all the things, I got really sick. I got really sick where I had a fever. I was bedridden. It was kind of the sickest that I've been my whole adult life.
Oh my God.
Yes. And I had to completely clear my calendar. I had a roster of clients and consults and just a lot going on with the business. And I had to take some time off of supporting my family members during that time. It was kind of, I went in survival mode.
Wow. So you had to take care of yourself. You had no choice. You had no choice. So it really makes you think what would have looked like if that you had been taking care of yourself all along, you know?
This is the thing. Yes.
Yeah, it's that's
the lesson. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a big one. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know so many of us have experienced it, and it's a fine line. It really is. So when all that started to happen and you noticed that you were having health concerns and that things were completely out of balance, what did you do? Like, how were you going to move forward now with this knowledge and physical experience that you had?
With a lot of support. It's still, I think I'm still learning the lesson. I'm not fully on the other side of it. It's an ongoing situation. I have to really prioritize my health and my self-care. And I'm still learning to do that every day. I just took a 3-day weekend where I did not work for a whole 3 days. Oh my gosh. I feel so rejuvenated, but obviously I need to do more of that.
And how did you create that space for yourself?
Well, it helps to have an assistant.
So
I
were
had
you
to bring in
planning
some
it?
help.
So were you planning way in advance? Like you said, these 3 days, I don't want to work at all, like not even a little
Yes,
bit. And that was the goal, to prepare for that?
exactly. Yes, I had to prepare in advance, block my calendar so no one could get in there, block it. No clients, no consults, no anything, no to-dos, just, yeah, plan it ahead at least 2 weeks. And I'll be doing that a lot more in the coming months just to make sure that I can have that balance. And I think it's just going to help me be a better business owner at the same time too. And I will, I'm sure, be even better with my clients too, right? I'll have more to give if I give to myself first.
Yeah, you're putting on the oxygen mask to yourself first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. I might
Yeah,
have to put a little oxygen max in front of my desk as a reminder. Thank you for that, Suzy.
probably not a bad idea. But that's the thing. I mean, to get balance, that's what we all want. So what can we do to make our boundaries non-negotiable? Because you're the only one who's going to crack into the boundary and loosen it up. And it starts with our mindset. And I've noticed the same thing. Like, I actually made a podcast on women in the middle. It's coming out this week, where I talked about this. It's like, when you tell somebody you're going to pick them up at the airport, you're going to be there. You're going to be there on time. You're going to go through a snowstorm. If you told, especially back in the day before we had cell phones. And I'm remembering what that, like, I used to divide my friends up into two categories: those who I could trust to pick me up at the airport after a 2-week vacation, and those I couldn't trust.
A good one.
But like, it's very different if you tell somebody you're going to pick them up versus you tell somebody, like you tell yourself, that you're not going to take any clients on Friday. What's more likely to be a slam dunk for most of us, right? If we commit to somebody else, it's easier to uphold for many of us. And if it's just an agreement with ourselves, it's easier to have a little wiggle room there when it comes to our actual commitment. And I like thinking about that because it helps me gauge my honest commitment to self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You know what else I did? Actually, I blocked out my Friday afternoons for the entire summer. I decided to give myself summer hours. Wow. What a concept.
Congratulations. That is such a beautiful thing. I love that. Oh my God, that's so good. Okay. So in your notes, you mentioned that sometimes you take 3 steps forward, you see a great success, and then you take 2 steps back. And I think that's a learning curve that's pretty realistic of what's actually happening there. But you sound so much more aware of it than you were before, and committed to never letting it go to that extent again. Would you say that's true?
Definitely. Well, it's not even an option for me now. I would say when I was still in corporate, if I didn't work in my business for 2 or 3 months, there was not really an impact in terms of my, financial health or stability, right? Whereas now, I mean, we're relying on this business in a financial way. And so, yeah, I think it feels very different to be all in and 100% committed to this.
Yeah. Now, another thing you mentioned, I think, is something that came up for a lot of people I've interviewed so far. And I'd like you to, if you don't mind, dive into it a little bit. You mentioned that you don't have the same energy that you used to have. And, at first, when you think that, and like I said, so many people have told me this, when you think I don't have the same energy, but our calendar looks the same, where's the disconnect there, right? This is like, we kind of get into trouble because we're not connected with what these changes mean for us realistically. How's that shown up for you with the energy thing?
Well, I think part of what's happening at this age is I don't sleep the way that I used to. So I don't feel as rested as I used to. But yet I still, somewhere in my brain, I think, oh, yes, I can still work the 8 to 6 or something like that, but it's not sustainable, right? I can't continue to work those hours for days on end, weeks on end, months on end. My body just cannot handle it. So it's just, I guess, being mindful, having that awareness and respecting that it's okay. I can arrange my calendar in a way that I am not going to burn myself out by working the same hours that I used to when I was in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s and I was building my corporate career.
That's it exactly. I started calling this sort of thing a new midlife operating system. How are we going to make changes to support what's really required for us at this age? So we need the mindset, which is no big surprise, but calling it an operating system is a more holistic way to think about what's required. So like you said, I've had clients that tell me they need to stop a little earlier in the afternoon, like what you were getting at, because of all kinds of reasons. Maybe it makes more sense to end at 3 or 4 than 5 or 6, right? If there's a dip in energy at the end of the day. I've had other clients that really want to focus on self-care and doing some of their routine-based self-care like thought work and exercise, maybe meditation or yoga. They like to start their day later and get all that stuff in the middle. And, there's no one solution for everybody, but in order to have this epiphany that this is the way I operate best, so I need to do things that help me operate best.
100%. Yeah, it's different because we've lived our whole lives kind of operating in a certain way. So I love the way that you describe this with an operating system. It's like installing an update, an upgrade, right?
Exactly.
The midlife upgrade.
Exactly. If only it were that easy, right? Because seriously, if you just think about the one thing that you said that I know I can relate to too, it's like, okay, if any of your friends were having this problem, gee, I'm getting a little tired later in the afternoon. I'm getting a little tired. I don't feel as perky. I don't feel quite as energetic. You would have great advice. But when it comes to applying it to ourselves, okay, what does that mean? It means I need to change my calendar. It means I need to think about how I'm going to do my scheduling and think about maybe what's on the next day. But you would start thinking about stuff like this. But for some reason, we're not like connecting the dots, or we have resistance or something. So what is your next step going to be to keep moving in this direction?
Build in some naps in the afternoon.
Ooh.
I think that's what I need to do.
I'm
an early riser. I have so much energy in the morning. I think very clearly in the morning, but most of my clients don't want to see me at 5 a.m. So now I need to find a solution because some of them need to see me at 6 p.m., right? So I think the afternoon nap would be a very good solution for me personally.
That's a great idea. And one thing that I love that you said is that you need to respect your midlife body so much more. And it's not putting respect for your business plans ahead of respect for your body, right? And I think that's a shift and something we grew up with a very different value set, that we were very separate, and we need to do that and then this. But when you think holistically about your body and your business, it's very different. And that's part of the midlife operating system. I really think that that all that stuff's really, we have to remember that we are over 50, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that our bodies are aging and may not be responding the way they used to. One of the things that you mentioned that you think about sometimes is, I wonder if I'm too old to be so visible in our youth-focused society. So as an online business person, we do have to show up on social media, in videos, we have to show up live. I mean, we have to, in quotes. Many of us choose to do that kind of marketing, and it makes sense for our niches. So what's that like for you? Why do you think, I think you're gorgeous. You look great right here in my Zoom square. I've watched your videos before. They're awesome. But still, you're not the only one who thinks, can somebody see my double chin? What does a double chin mean? You know what I mean? Or whatever it is for you. For me, I'm always worried about my double chin. What's it for you? And why do you think you're thinking that way?
Well, I mean, obviously it's the way we've been conditioned, I would say. And it's something that I had to get over for sure. I don't really let it stop me anymore. It was something that I worked on before I went full time in my business, thankfully, so that it didn't stop me from putting myself out there. But it was definitely something that I struggle with at some time. Thinking that yeah, there's just a lot of pluses put on youth. And you don't see as many people our age being as active as we are, I would say, out there and being visible. But I think it's great for us to be doing it and kind of showing what can be done. And it really, age is just a number. And I mean, I talk to some people in some of the conversations that I have in my business that are in their 60s and are loving their work, right? And so I do think that it's important to put ourselves out there and to encourage people, if they want to continue to work, if they want to continue to add value, it's important that we do it.
100%. There are people out there waiting for us just to get over ourselves so that we can help them.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's so good. Now, one of the things you mentioned that surprised you a little bit is how much you really love being an entrepreneur and doing the work that you do, completely transitioning out of corporate. Why do you think it's such a surprise for you how much you love it?
Well, it's so many years of not doing it, so many years of being in corporate, working in a certain way, really having the success that you can get in corporate. And now it's building somebody else's business. Now it's all building my own business, having my own clients, helping them generate their own success. It's just so much more rewarding, I would say, than what I was doing before. Even though it had its rewards, I mentored and coached a lot of people in corporate. I really enjoyed that. But for me, it was, selling products in kind of a consumer based type of environment versus helping people with their life and their career. I mean, it's just so much more fulfilling for me.
And I can't even imagine helping. Well, I can actually, but you're doing it. Okay. I mean, I can because I've had some clients who have been working with me to make a big transition, but I'm not working specifically like you are, going from corporate and looking for another job and reimagining skills in that same way. And so I just made a big assumption. So I just want to not make that big assumption live on a podcast. I want to ask you a question. And the question is, how does it feel to know that your coaching helped somebody get the job that they didn't know they really wanted?
It's incredible, right? It changes lives. I just love that we live in this day and age where it's possible for us to do this kind of work and to have that kind of an impact, and that I could do this if I want to for the next 15 plus years, right? Which I probably would have been challenged to do in corporate. So I love that I'm really in charge of my own destiny and in charge of having the impact that I want to have.
Oh, I love that. And I'm curious with what you just said too, because do you think you wouldn't have done it in corporate because of ageism or because you would have wanted to retire because you weren't as fulfilled? What do you think would have happened? Because like you, entrepreneurs, a lot of us are like, bring it on. We're having so much fun. We're not thinking about retirement at this point. It's like, oh, I'll just adjust my business model or something.
Exactly. Yes. I do think there would have been a lot of challenges to continue in corporate. There, unfortunately, is some age discrimination, certainly in some industries. And the idea of, even if that was not a factor, the idea of having to commute into my 60s and early 70s, potentially, right. I don't think so.
Especially with snowstorms in on Southern Ontario. Terrible.
Not good.
Not good at all. I don't miss that either. I don't miss that
either.
Oh my God.
I think that was aging me more than anything.
Oh my God. That's one thing that COVID really put a spotlight on that, on the challenge and exhaustion and stress that comes from commuting. Okay, Danielle, this is all so good. Now tell us, how can people best get in touch with you?
Actually, they can find me on LinkedIn or on my website. So on LinkedIn, I'm Danielle Bradley 1 on LinkedIn. So pretty easy to find. And then on my website at coachwithdanielle.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time from your day and sharing all of this good stuff. I really appreciate how authentic you were in, really talking about what it was like to have burnout, to have that distance and take care of your family, to make that big, scary decision to go full time in your own business. And really, like, you're going all in on yourself, not for the faint of heart. So thank you so much for doing what you're doing and coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Suzy.
All right, that is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It is never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.